Hello, hello. Letting everybody in.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. Nice to meet you, Monica.
Oh, nice to meet you too.
Thanks for hosting us.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for being here. Hi, Carmen. And I think
Hi.
Batu and Wilkes, that's Sean.
Oh, that's me. Yeah.
Hi, Wilkes.
Cool. Welcome.
Hey.
Thanks for being here. We're broadcasting this live on YouTube, so it'll be there now until whenever. So I'm going to say a few remarks and welcomes and welcome people from the YouTube world land as well as you. And then I'll invite Jonah to say a few words and we'll get going on the conversation about your wonderful artwork. So welcome. You can see I'm here. My name is Monica Miller. If anybody doesn't know that. And I am here on the top floor of Gallery 1 in the Evelyn Green Gallery. It was the original gallery space for Gallery 1 Visual Arts Center. And you can see behind me Sean's kayaks. So you can imagine I'm feeling pretty lucky to be here right now. We are in Ellensburg, Washington, for anybody who has not been here before, on the land of the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakama Nation. We have been here for almost 52, 53 years in one form or another, and we're a community arts center, and that means that we try to create community through artwork. We have exhibits, rotating exhibits monthly, and we have classes for adults and kids, and we also have community-based events when we can. Or I guess we have been able to do events both here and online over the past year, so we've been creative as we are being creative.
But we've been missing people.
In this moment. What?
We've been missing people.
We have been missing people. Tonight's First Friday. It's our First Friday art walk, non-art walk here. It's usually full of people, and I just know people will be so excited to be able to meet you guys in person and see your work. But we are able to be open, so we know that people will be able to come in and see your work in person. But I do thank you for being here in this format, and I welcome you into the space. I know that Sean was able to come in here today, which was awesome. For anyone tuning in from YouTube, I invite you to find out more about all of the things that we do on our Facebook page or Instagram page, or where you are now on YouTube at Gallery 1 Ellensburg, to stay connected. And go ahead, you can just go and subscribe to that YouTube channel so you know about all the things that we're doing. If you're an artist living in Kittitas County, I want to put on your radar that the Kittitas County Open Show is in May, and this year it's being juried by Philippe Kim. He is a graduate from CWU, but he's also a member of Soil Art Gallery in Seattle. He started his own gallery space in Seattle too. Do you know him, Sean? Have you met him?
Well, I showed at Soil.
Oh, right on. I'm a former Soil member too, so it's really cool to stay connected. It's awesome that Philippe is going to come back and juror the show for our community. So get working if you're an artist living in Kittitas County. I want to thank our sponsors for this exhibit. Sponsors are kind of our assists in helping us make all of this happen. We have, for this specific exhibit, Patricia Cutright and Ken Gerard. They are board members, and Central Washington University for Inclusivity and Diversity. We also received some funds from the Kittitas County lodging tax to assist in getting the work here. So we're grateful to have support from our community in those different ways. Jonah asked me to speak on why this exhibit in particular was important to Gallery 1. And I want to share a couple of reasons. The first reason, I think for me, the foremost reason is simply as a society, we don't know enough about Indigenous people. I certainly don't. I've lived here for 20 years. So I want to personally acknowledge that. My hope is that through the artwork in this exhibit and going forward, that we can create connections between tribal and non-tribal members. And as Jonah put it, learn to talk about it. He helped me write this. He's helping me talk about it. So thank you. Additionally, we want to create a more accessible museum and gallery field in general to communities who have been traditionally shut out. So therefore, it's really important to us that we empower young and emerging voices like Jonah's as our guest curator this month. So we recognize and acknowledge that there is still a lot of work to do, but I'm very grateful to be here with you all. And with that said, I will pass the virtual mic to Jonah. Kathleen, our curator for this exhibit.
Thanks, Monica. My name is Jonah Katlian, and I am a former CWU film and anthropology student. I did graduate. I'm an alumni. First, I sort of wanted to take you viewers behind the meaning of the title. There is no I in identity. And to do that, we first have to sort of look at the definition of identity. Google defines identity as the fact of being who or what a person or thing is. I'd like to emphasize the fact of being in this definition and its relation to Indigenous identity. Identity is not something preserved or defined by the past. Rather, it is a state of being and place by an individual or collective. Identity is and always will be a dynamic role being defined by those members that belong to the people or place. This exhibit is very unique because all of the artists know each other through passing, through previous art setups, art galleries, art workshops, and every single one of our artists is Indigenous, either local to Alaska or Indigenous to Alaska, Yakima, or wherever. First, let's start with an introduction from Carmen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Carmen Salam. I am Yakima and Comanche, but I'm an enrolled member of the Yakima Nation. And I just also wanted to give a recognition that this gallery, Gallery One, who I'm so happy and excited to work with, is on ancestral Yakima land, particularly the Kittitas Band, who was led most notably by Chief Auhai. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out. Also, I just wanted to include in my introduction that I'm an alumni from the Institute of American Indian Arts, and I currently live and work on the Yakima Reservation.
Awesome. Thank you, Carmen. Now, could we introduce Sean Gallagher?
Yes. Hello. I can't see myself right now.
We can see you.
But yeah, anyway, hey, my name is Sean Gallagher. I am a descendant of King Island. King Island, Alaska is in the Bering Straits. My grandmother grew up there. I did not grow up way up north. I am actually from the lower 48. That's where I grew up. My Nupiaq name is Asaruk, and that means dark person or person that wears black. And I think my aunt named me that because I was going through like a big goth stage when I was younger, and I wore black all the time. So she's like, Asaruk. I was like, okay, that sounds good. And it fits my personality. I'm really happy to work with this gallery, and I want to give a shout out to Jonah here because he's put up with me being like pretty absent-minded and not completely with it because I'm a new father now, and that's a lot of work. And I've been preoccupied with all that stuff. But I live in Seattle, Washington, and my wife is an artist too, and an amazing person. And yeah, that's about it for me as far as introductions go. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean, and thank you for
Yeah.
that. Just know that it has been awesome to work with you all, especially Sean. Art as we know it kind of occurs in everyday life, every situation that a human being is in. Art makes the beauty behind that. Certainly, there is beauty behind raising. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and introduce.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jen and Gallagher Wood, born and raised in Fairbanks, Alaska. And growing up, I would spend summers in Tununic, Alaska, which is where my dad's family is from. My Yupik name is Yaphun, which is I was named after my grandpa's sister. And so in Yupik tradition, you're named after someone who has passed away so that you carry on the qualities that they had in life. And then you continue those in your own life. I now live in Indianola, which is outside of Seattle on traditional Suquamish land. And yeah, this has been a blast being part of this show. And I've driven through Ellensburg, but never been to Ellensburg. So this has been a treat.
Thanks, Jen. I'm actually standing right in front of one of the amazing pieces that Jen did specifically for this gallery. It's been an awesome experience because we have so much space with 3 artists, so they could just run wild. In particular, this one piece that spans this entire wall in the front room at Gallery 1. It is an amazing piece, and I hope everybody comes and sees it while they can. Cool. Thank you, everybody. Let's start a discussion about Indigenous identity and why this exhibit is so important. Let's, Carmen, if you could, speak to the importance of recognizing Indigenous identity and sort of the importance of representation.
Indigenous identity and representation is so important, especially in the art world. I think that, at least with my work, I try to really push just my existence today. I remember we had a conversation, me and Jonah, about how I'm a Yakima person and I'm an Indigenous person, and anything I make is going to be Indigenous art. It's going to be Native art because I made it, no matter what the subject matter is. And so I think that this show is actually really special because we have a Native curator and other Native artists, and we get to kind of speak to each other in this really weird time. And we're able to have our artwork speak to each other when we can't all physically be together. So I think this show is super important for us representation. And also, I think it's just, as I said before, really special that we're all in this together, showing our own kind of little view of the world. So yeah, that's my thoughts about that.
That was a great conversation that we had a few weeks ago about Indigenous identity and stressing that you don't have to necessarily be brought up in Indigenous culture, Indigenous land. If you have Indigenous lineage, you can it's a part of you, and those stories and those places in the land, it connects to you, and that's certainly something to be proud of, and we all need to recognize that and just appreciate it. Jen, I'm going to ask you one question that I always ask every Indigenous artist that I encounter, that I'm able to have a conversation with, because as myself, I am sort of disconnected from Indigenous culture and community, being brought up a white person and just still carrying the Indigenous identity with me from birth, but I never really got to dive into the traditions, into the artwork, into the livelihoods. So what does it mean to be Indigenous to you?
For me, being Indigenous is no one thing. I think the media has really presented indigeneity historically as being sort of one-dimensional and very simple. But I always point out that right now there are, I'm going to get this number wrong, 572, I think, federally recognized tribes. There are a few hundred more seeking federal recognition, and there are hundreds more in different states that have state recognition. And so that alone should show people that there are many ways of being Indigenous. And you and I talked about this, Jonah. I think one of the important things to remember is our history is very complicated, and there are many reasons why people have not been able to feel connected. So whether it was their families moving away from their home territories or being sent away, the history of boarding schools is particularly tragic, with children being forcibly removed from their homes. But then also there were things like work programs as recently as the 60s. My dad, who grew up in Tanunic, was sent to Los Angeles. And it was this great big jobs program that sort of just shipped a bunch of Alaska Native people to large cities. And it didn't suit him. LA is just way too big and busy even back then. And I want people to remember that there are reasons that people maybe don't feel as connected or weren't brought up in those traditions. But there's also this whole range. So there are people who grew up in villages or on reservations all the way to, I feel like urban native is kind of becoming this new category all on its own. Just because a lot of us now are either raised in cities or drawn to cities. I went to school at University of Washington and never thought I'd come back to Seattle. And here I am. But I think for me, an art practice is very important for that aspect. When you look at all these different remnants of material culture, historically, even from archaeological digs, you see the way Native people have connected with their surroundings and their materials and the tools they use. And they made them all so beautiful. So I think that's part of it too, is the act of creation and feeling connected that way.
Yeah, certainly human beings are just naturally drawn to places, beautiful places that hold this energy that kind of just flows through all of us, and that we are just all part of, like, we need to recognize where we come from, and it's the earth. And certainly just finding that importance anywhere you go is fantastic. For Sean, how has your Indigenous identity sort of helped shape your artistic style and the messages that you show through your work?
Yeah, like, can you guys hear me okay?
Sure.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so yeah, like I guess I should start like when I was very little. Like both my uncles are stone carvers, which is awesome. Like I get to grow up with that, so it's kind of like influenced by them at a very early age. Even though I was not living in Alaska, like I was still like involved in that level with the art and stuff. But as far as like the way my artwork is shaped, like I use that like influence from them as being around them as a child, and kind of developing my artwork with that base of that root of King Island artwork. And I kind of branched off after apprenticing with Larry Avacana for a couple of years, and he kind of like helped me realize like my potential, and then also encouraged me to try different things that were just like festering in my mind. You know, like he kind of encouraged me to have that finesse to like express myself. So I did that. So like, sorry, I'm like trying to come up with words right now for
Express yourself. Like,
yeah. Can you repeat the question again? So I had just, my kid was yelling at me in the background, and my mic was off. So like, just repeat it really quick.
how has the Indigenous identity sort of shaped the artwork that you do? And
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
design it?
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I started at an early age with my uncles carving, and yeah, I started practicing with Larry Avicana, like apprenticing under him, and then I was going to college at the time for environmental science. So I was got a degree in fisheries biology, and I ended up basing a lot of my pieces off of climate change, because I was learning all about the devastation that we're facing as a human species. So like, I wanted to take some of that knowledge and then put it into my artwork, so I can make people aware of the problems that were uh, affecting Arctic communities specifically, that I'm like connected to through my lineage. So uh, that's my driving force, is like trying to kind of get that message out to people, because I feel like it's really important that people understand that. And I wanted to like also do it in a way that it would be not preaching to the choir, but like it would be like reaching people that normally wouldn't be thinking about these things. And I'm actually a longshoreman, is like a blue collar job. So like I'm around people that aren't in that mind frame, and it's like I can persuade them like by seeing a cool piece of artwork, and then just be like, oh yeah, well, this is cool, I think about this different frame of mind, and it kind of like grow in that way. So like that's really important to me. I guess other influences growing up, I was like really involved with the punk scene, so like that actually helped. That actually comes out my work at how spastic it is and colorful. And I feel like a lot of people can identify with that as well, that aren't necessarily Indigenous. So I've got that flair as well. But yeah, so that's me.
I like the punk. I'm standing right.
Yeah, I mean that was like a big part of my life, from when I was like 13 to like now. Like I still involved with that stuff like to this day. But yeah.
All of your life's experiences have sort of come together in a culmination of.
Yeah, I mean I've had like, I haven't really had a conventional life. Like I like grew up in New England. My father's Indigenous. My grandmother grew up in King Island. Like I was really into like the alternative lifestyle. So like I like lived in a van for a while. Like I built a tree house. I lived in the tree house for a while. I went to college, did the art thing. Like I'm just kind of like, I don't know, kind of a mess.
Not a mess, but a crazy cool story.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Sean. Sort of talking about the environment and sort of raising awareness for things that are important to our communities and our cultures today. Jen, how do these messages that you want to send sort of transpire in your artwork and your mask work?
Well, a really foundational aspect of my pieces is they all have a story of some sort. So all Indigenous, or a lot of Indigenous cultures were bound in oral tradition, and story is not just a way to entertain yourself. It's also a way to pass down knowledge and information. And I find I really gravitate towards that when I'm creating pieces. And so the artwork is a way to sort of get someone's attention. The story is a way to draw them a little bit in more. And then hopefully my goal is always to educate people, whether it's about Yupik tradition or history in particular, or just sort of stimulate interest in the Indigenous worldview, or, you know, just even a different view than their own. I think the story kind of helps cement that. Some of my work is a little more unusual visually. Actually, I was at the Heard Museum art market a couple years ago, and the funniest comment was this pretty old woman, I think in her 80s, with a walker. And she was going by my table and she stopped and she goes, "Well, this is weird." And I just burst out laughing, and her daughter looked horrified, but I think she was relieved that I laughed. But it's unusual, but once people read the story, it starts to make more sense. And I've even had people want to make sure that I include the stories with my pieces, just so you can kind of put all the different elements together. So that's what I always hope is to create something that I am proud of, but also something that people will hopefully learn from as well.
Absolutely. Carmen, could you, there are certainly an enormous amount of issues in the world today, and issues surrounding Indigenous identity and just Indigenous culture are certainly at the top of our radar. Can you speak to how your artwork relates to issues surrounding Indigenous identity?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the pieces that I included in this show speak to those ideas of stereotypes. There's a very romantic view of Native people. And when I was younger, I used to be Miss Yakama Nation. So it was my responsibility to be kind of an ambassador for the tribe. And a part of that responsibility was kind of representing like what a young woman would be like, you know, a young Yakama woman. And while I did that, and this continues to echo through my work, I kind of focus on things that are nostalgic. I go back to the things that resonate with me when I was like a kid. So the piece that's included in this show called Coachella Queen is kind of a representation of that. Since I attended the Institute of American Indian Arts, before doing that, I lived in Portland, Oregon. I went to OCAC, the Oregon College of Art and Craft, and my art there wasn't very well received. And that's partially because there wasn't really an understanding of Native people. And so the understanding of Native people is what I see through Coachella Queen. The references are always Pocahontas, but you know, the Disney version, or it's going to be Tiger Lily, who's a completely made up Native person, you know. And in Coachella Queen, I even have the woman figure wearing the infamous Urban Outfitter Navajo panties that were they got in trouble for. And so I don't know, I'm just kind of calling out that culture. And I'm actually really glad that Coachella, as far as I'm aware, has banned the headdresses. At least that's what I last heard. But I also just, I think as Native people, we need to be telling our own stories and what's really going on. It can be political. The Res piece represents a popular toy in the 90s, the Polly Pocket, which has come back, by the way. A lot of my life, my adult life, has been centered around living in different places, but I always feel a very strong connection to my ancestral homelands, as well as my people. And so what I wanted to represent there, kind of building off of what Sean was talking about environmental things, is also just treaty rights. So Nixon had given us back Mount Adams in when he was the president, right before he got out of office. And that was a significant moment. There's a lot of very important places here in Washington state that are just very sacred to me as a tribe, and sacred to other bands and tribes as well. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like my work is reflected of that kind of. So Privilege, I did this in 2017. And it was before maybe what's popular now known as Karens. When you're an artist, you have to take on different roles. I was a cashier at Cost Plus World Market, and I encountered a lot of those types of people, and those same people would be going to my shows in Santa Fe. And so kind of having those experiences was bizarre. And I just challenge my audience to look at my work because it's so bright and vibrant, but to every time they look by it, catch something different. So it's a conversation for sure that I'm going to continue in my work.
Right on. Certainly, it is a conversation that is necessary to continue on as a people, as a culture. If we want anything to get done in this world, like, we have to be able to stand together and support each other, and that sort of requires collaboration, which is one of the things that's so awesome about this group show, is because starting with Sean and Jen, you obviously know each other for a while now. But could either Jen or Sean, or even both, talk to me a little bit about what it's like to show along other artists that you've come to know through your journey?
Well, I guess I can go. Jen, you cool with that? All right, cool. Yeah, I know Jen and Carmen pretty well, actually. I go really far back with Carmen. She was there when I met my wife, which is amazing. Like 10 years ago, probably, or 12 years ago. But yeah, and I know Jennifer because we did the like international artist gathering together, and that was like a really awesome experience to be working with Indigenous artists from New Zealand and Canada and the US mostly. But yeah, showing along other Native artists is amazing. Like it's the true feeling of collaboration. Like when you're like coming together and like strengthening each other. Like in that way, and the successful, like aiding to each other's success. Like by building something that's like really amazing and attracting more people. Like I just can't say enough about how awesome that is, and like just having that connection with the other Native people too is like really important, because there's like, it's almost like there's like a magic that happens when things like that happen, because you start to like learn from each other, and like it creates more support, and yeah, it's just amazing. But,
Yeah, and I would add to that, it shows the wide range of artistic styles that come out of different Native communities, the different aesthetics. Most of us have pretty similar goals overall. I mean, you'll always hear, wanting to teach people and wanting to decolonize the art world a little bit. But I think it goes to show you can have these really different styles come out of very similar ideas. And it's what we were talking about with identity earlier. We all have different ways of relating to our past, and it's a way to unpack our own experiences and the experiences of our communities by sharing with each other. So Sean's from King Island, and I knew that no one lived there anymore. I did not know that the state of Alaska had made it illegal for anyone to live there, because it would mean they would need to provide services, and they didn't want the expense. And so that's a lot to unpack for a community to know that they came down to a line item. And so showing alongside other Native artists is a way to open up those conversations, to show the different experiences we all have, and to show that we're all still working on it. We're all still learning, and sort of trying to build up ourselves and our communities and other Native people. I have found it to be a very supportive community. When Sean and I were at that artist gathering, I would compliment someone on something and their immediate reaction was, let me show you how I did it, which I had never experienced myself in the art world. So it feels really special to be a part of that, and to continue showing what we want to show and not necessarily have it screened through someone else's vision.
Talking about learning from one another, a big factor in that is mentorship and learning from our elders, learning from people who oversee our work and teach us techniques. Jen, could you talk a little bit about your story with mentorship and how it's moved along your artwork?
Yeah, so the biggest thing was I actually learned how to carve when I was in high school. I was lucky enough to go to a school that had an Alaska Native art program that was started by a man named Ron Manook. He has since passed, but he was an Athabascan carver, and he was amazing. He kept his eye out for all kids, especially ones who are maybe struggling, but he definitely kept a special eye out for Native kids. And so I was able to take his class 3 times. They actually had to create Alaska Native Art 3 because there's a few of us who were absolutely insistent, like, we're going to go to his room no matter what. So you can either give us a class or we'll just be skipping whatever we're supposed to be in. But his belief in everyone was just transformative. His encouragement for each student who came in through his doors. And so that, a story I like to tell is that I've always hated sanding my work. I like the look of it, but I don't like the process of it. And I was boo-hooing about having to sand a mask one time, and he was working on a piece that was going to go into the Doyon building in Fairbanks, and he had a power sander. And I'm 16 years old, something like that. And I go, hey, how come you get to use that? And he looked me dead in the eye and he said, because I earned this. And I was immediately humbled, and I said, okay. And I just kept sanding my mask. But I always think about that. I always think of the importance of earning it, making sure you're not just, putting something in to put something in. It's got to be something that you're satisfied with. But then he actually passed away unexpectedly in 1999 at the age of 44. And a bunch of us were kind of cast adrift, and I stopped carving for a little while, and then came back to it. And then, so for about 7 or 8 years, I was pretty much self-taught, just kind of stumbling through, trying to extend the abilities of the tools that I had at hand. And then I moved to the Seattle area, actually for my husband's job. And I kind of stumbled into working at Chief Kitsap Academy, which is run by the Suquamish tribe in Paulsbo, and met my friend Randy, who is a Suquamish carver. And kind of from that relationship, as well as the International Artist Gathering, I've been able to learn about adzes and bent knives, especially. And it has completely changed the work that I do. I have a lot more experimentation. I have a lot more depth in a lot of them, like literal depth, not like I'm so deep. Like my mask went from 2 inches to like 4 to 6 inches deep. And that was just a skill I didn't know before. And so just having people I can go to and ask questions of, there's even a gallery I was working with, I was stuck on how to attach some universe rings. The fake sinew I had used failed and they fell apart and it was awful. And they connected me with a really well-known Alaska Native artist who immediately was just like, oh yeah, anytime she needs help, she can give me a call. Here's my number. Here's my email. So it makes a huge difference just to know there are people who have this knowledge that they want to share.
And it certainly makes a difference that these networks and these communities of people within the art world itself are so supportive of just the youth in their community. I believe, Carmen, you spoke to me a little bit about the messages that you're trying to send to the youth in your community.
Yeah, I'm also a youth mentor for the Yakama Nation youth activities. So we do cultural events as well as, youth activities. So it's just a variety of things. But I think with my art, I have two smaller siblings and they are preteens and teen now. And they're artists too. And I know, at least with myself, I feel like a lot of my career has been trial and error. So just moving forward and figuring out as I go. And I'm also very fortunate to have mentors like Sean, who I've known for a number of years, help me along. And so with my work and with these relationships that I'm building with art people, galleries, museums, curators, I hope that I'll be able to put a foot in the door so that, it may be easier for other Native artists to enter this world, especially since I feel like every Native person is an artist. We weave, we paint, we do all kinds of things. And I think that we definitely need a space and to make space. So that's definitely a big part of what I advocate for is youth getting their work out there, particularly Indigenous youth.
Sean, could you talk about mentorship and sort of what it means to you and maybe any notable teachers that you've had in your career?
Yeah, I guess like I said, started my uncle Louis and Louis Danayak. He grew up on King Island and he was a stone carver, and he wasn't real famous, but he made carvings to get by. He was a street person in Seattle for a long time, and that's how he kind of made money. And then he moved in with my grandmother, and from when I was old enough to stand, I was like one, and I would sit next to him, and he'd carve for hours, And then my uncle Brian was he was a sketch artist and a painter, and he did some stone carving, and I learned from him by watching him. And then as I got older, I kind of just got more involved with high school arts. I was really involved with that. And then I went to college, and I went to the community college for a couple of years, and I was studying figure drawing and just clay, doing some basic clay stuff when I was really young. And then as I got older, I joined a boat building collective, and this is not, it's kind of art related, but it kind of becomes art related later on. But yeah, I joined this boat building collective in Guerneville, California, which is it's kind of it's like a gay town in northern California. For some reason we ended up there, and we had a shop there. I think we ended up there because it was really cheap rent, and we are building lapstrake dories and skiffs and canoes. And then I got interested in building King Island kayaks from there because I wanted to do something that was more culturally relevant. So I got a grant from my travel corporation to build a couple King Island kayaks. And then I went to Evergreen State College and I did a independent study through their independent study program to do King Island kayak replicas, and I traveled around the country and I did surveys of historic kayaks and museums, and then I rebuilt kayaks to spec. Yeah. And so I did that for a while, and I was really involved with kayak building. And then I actually had this advertisement on Native Radio. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's like this old website called Native Radio, and I had a banner ad on that for King Island kayaks as I was selling them at the time. And then a member of the King Island dance group that was based in Tacoma, Washington, got a hold of me. And then they're like, you should come check out the dance group. And I was like, all right, I'll come check it out. And then I walk in, they're all eyeing me, like, who's this guy, And then my aunt was there, which is really cool. And Julia Foster, she grew up with my grandmother and my uncle, and she just comes up to me and starts spanking me. Like, oh, you're Sean. I heard all about you, And then I got hooked up there with Larry Avicana, and then I started working with him for quite a while, a couple of years, and we did a lot of mask work together, and then we ended up building an umiak together, and then we made a film together, which is a documentary film called Paddle to the Beat, in collaboration with an Iraqi filmmaker from England, and we made that film together. And so that's kind of the buildup of me and where I'm at, as far as apprenticing goes. And I plan on passing a lot of my knowledge and stuff on to my kid as he grows older, and sharing that with him. Yeah. So I hope I didn't ramble on too much for you guys, but
Not at all. I would like to. I have seen the documentary that you just spoke of, and it's
yeah.
cool and powerful. Is it available on your website?
No, well, it's not. I can email you the code, but it's not a public thing right now, just because it was it was in some film festivals, and they were kind of keeping it closed for opening nights and stuff for the Arctic Festival in Edinburgh, Scotland. And for some reason it just remained shut after that. But I mean, if people are interested and you're on the YouTube channel, you can email me or comment on the film on the below this posting, and I can give you the code so you can watch it, because it's not really that big of a deal if I give it to people to watch.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, after this conversation, it's been eye-opening, not only for me, and I just wanted to thank all of you in Gallery 1 for allowing us to show our work, allowing me to come on and create this sort of community within itself. A closing remark on some topics that we talked about is that there is power in solidarity and unity. These principles are built off of a mutual understanding between different groups of people, but in doing so, we inherently create a space of respect and recognition for all. My goal for curating this gallery was to bring together a group of individuals who express their identity and their culture through their artwork, and I believe that is what we have done. And so by doing so, we are building a collective, tribe affiliated or not, and are building their understanding of Indigenous culture and the artists who represent and carry forward our stories, technique, and history. And that is what it is all about. Thanks, guys. I'm going to hand it off to Monica, unless any of you have any closing statements. Cool. Monica?
Well, I will echo that. Thank you. And I'll start with you, Jonah, for proposing the exhibit and doing all of that, the legwork to reach out to these amazing artists, Jennifer Kerman and Sean so great to meet you in virtual person. And I think we'll be able to see each other tomorrow in the space. Hopefully you all get to see the work here. I learned, I have a lot of notes. I got a lot of notes. So I'll definitely be following up. I'm just actually really interested in the idea of the arts education and how I love that conversation about your mentors and the notion that all natives are artists. I was like, we have a real problem with arts education in this country, and it's seriously lacking. I had a conversation with Elise Washines from the Yakama Nation a couple weeks ago. I was like, what, do you guys have your own schools? You know, I was just trying to learn about the education system. And she was like, yes. And yes, we have arts education in all of the schools. I was like, okay. I think that's incredible. And to have it just so naturally, just a natural manifestation of who you are as people and the work that you are sharing is just a testament to having art in your life throughout your life. So thank you for like that nugget and others that I will most definitely be following up with you on individually. And thank you again, Jonah. Thank you to those who have joined us tonight. Thank you who are joining us later as a recording. Thank you to Renee Adams, who is our exhibitions coordinator. I imagine you have all connected with her in one way or another. And she helped put the exhibit together. And she's also been facilitating the YouTube chat too. So she's been here. Thanks to our sponsors and thanks to the community who joined us tonight. And I invite you all into the space to sort of apply this conversation to the artwork that we have. So with that, we'll do a thank you so much. And please, follow up in any way, either in person or online. And I'm going to, unless there are any follow-up thoughts to that.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you, Sean, for just letting me intrude on your lives, interview you, get to know you.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. This has been fun.